I had a dream the early morning of 12/12/2022. And in that dream, I was in a car. I had fallen asleep in the car, and it was a red convertible, and I had recognized the body style. It was late 50s, early 60s Corvette. And when I woke up, I walked into the building. I was in a parking lot, and in that building, it was kind of like a swap meet. There were vendors selling various things. I met this woman, and I remember she was instantly easy to be around, and it was like I had an instant connection with her, and we felt like fast friends, and there was just an easiness. I decided that I wanted to show her my car for whatever reason, and I took her out to the parking lot to show her this car, and it was gone. And I wanted to go look for it, and she decided that she was going to help me look for it. And so we started walking, and we actually came across the car that I currently drive, and it was tucked away in the bushes. It was like along a fence with thorns growing over it, like it had been kind of abandoned. And then I woke up.
Like you weren't invited personally.
So I have this friend, her name is Kira. She invited me to a house church of hers. Barbara Buckland did a house church in her home one evening, the first time I went, and she had some Christian astrologer, and one of the things he spoke of was this really eventful eclipse that was going to happen in a couple of months, a month or two. And then he was talking about, and not only is this eclipse significant, but there's going to be a follow-up second eclipse in April of next year. And I thought, oh, that's so far out, who knows what life leads to. But this first one I was really, really interested in. So I had decided to go with another friend of mine, camping in Central Texas, but that fell through. And so then Kira said to me, well, we've got a missions trip that we're doing. We're going to go see the eclipse. Do you want to come? And I thought, well, that's great. But within a day or two of the trip, she and her husband dropped out. And I got this text and I thought, well, who else is going? Because I only remember a handful of other people, and none of them were women. And so I called her up and I said, well, Kira, I think there's just 4 other men going. I mean, who are these people, and are they safe, and would I still be safe to go? And she said, oh, you'll be fine. They're great, they're a fun crew. And I thought, well, okay.
All right, so let's see. There's a new Narnia. New Narnia.
Maybe there's a...
Yeah, we see a little bit of heat. Before it was mostly leaves and filler.
About 9 months later, I had planned a ministry trip with my friend who was doing a very specific type of evangelism that was centered around kind of New Age, ministering to witches or people that are just unfamiliar with Christianity but very open to the supernatural. And so we decided to meet at a place where he was doing this just so that I could learn before we went off on that trip. Well, I went to sit down at this cafe, and Genevieve happened to be there.
And I had gotten an extra tea because it's a self-serve. And I had offered it to, I think, 2 different people before Will and Nick got there, and nobody accepted it. And I thought, well, that's quite odd that someone wouldn't accept a cup of tea. Will and Nick, whom I hadn't met before, they were just the people on the phone who were getting lost and possibly not going to make it. They eventually came, and Will sat next to me, and I had offered them the tea, and I remember being surprised that he accepted it, but he was so gracious in how he did it, and very gentle, and I thought, well, that's nice. Finally, someone accepting the cup of tea.
I just remember thinking, yes, I do want tea. That sounds nice, and I gladly accepted it.
The conversation was really pleasant with him, and of course I was there again on a mission to learn what this is about and what we're doing. And so I wasn't thinking personally, but he was being personable and asking about my dog and, you know, who I am. And I thought, why is he asking me these questions? This is very distracting.
I had recalled my dream. It was like I was reminded of it. And I remembered the easiness that I had with her felt so much like the woman I had met in that dream. And it was kind of just a placeholder, like a reminder, like I should pay attention to this. Just in the back of my mind. I don't put too much precedence on dreams, but they do have significance.
Anyway, so we proceeded to take this trip. It was 3 days, 3 hours in the car.
Felt quite fortunate that I was going to be able to spend about 2 3-hour car rides with her and 3 days. I thought this was quite the gift to get to know her. I couldn't have worked that out if I tried.
Yeah, but on the trip there were a few things that I had noticed. For example, when we all got crushed in the back seat, 3 big people, well, I was smaller, but in this little clown car, that one door didn't work, so we were all piling in and out of one side. I remember he's a big guy, you know, broader, but he sat pulled together very tightly so that we would not touch. I didn't feel crowded, I didn't feel smashed in. But then a follow-up thought was, he doesn't know we're friends yet.
I'm trying to give her space, and I kind of would like hug the door a little bit, and I noticed she kind of sat very close to me, and at times I kind of like peeked over to see how close she was to the other person and realized she had favored me in that regard.
I did, I just kind of like leaned a little bit just to let him know it was like fine, you know.
So I was like, okay, this might be a sign. She might be trying to give me a signal because she's very intentional about those things.
What's your name again? I forgot. Andrew. Brandon. I was like, you look very familiar.
3 days in Corpus Christi, and I believe it was the first day we're going to a restaurant, and along the way I see this car lot, and there's this beautiful, like, I believe it was a 63 Corvette. It's the first year of the Stingray, which is like one of my favorite models of the Corvette, and it was a all red convertible. And at first I was just excited to see the car, and then I have that dream flash in my mind, and I have Genevieve like literally sitting right next to me while I'm thinking of that dream, seeing that car, and then I've got her there, and it's kind of like is this a sign? Is this significant? I kind of just let it be. But then the next day, we drive past this statue that is all gray, but it is the model of the car that in the dream, and it's all one color. And so I'm kind of like putting those two things together, and it just felt like God was saying, you know, what do you want this to mean? Like, it's open. If, you know, I gave you this dream, I gave you this experience, you can make of it what you want.
You know, these trips are always fun. You get to know people, you get to do evangelism, and this was the first time I was able to do it pretty freely because I was with people. Like when I'm on my own, I'm not as free to do some of the, like, just approach people and talk with them the way I was with this crew of people. And I was kind of surprised that every time, not every time, but most times that I would turn around, Will would be there. And at first, I'm so independent and so used to being on my own, at first I was like, who is this person? Why are you right there? Ah! Like, but then almost immediately I realized what my perspective shifted, and I realized that was actually quite nice. It was someone present with me, quiet, not directing me, but just looking out for me. And it allowed me to do a lot of things that I naturally do that I hadn't been able to do in a while, because, you know, I'm on my own, it's different. Oh, there's some
Oh,
strings in
thread.
it.
Yeah.
Can you pull that out? Yeah.
Look at shoes, Chad.
We did it! When was that we did?
Okay.
There's also the tie.
That's hilarious. I just doubled my wheel knowledge without reading alone. That's
He's great.
amazing. I gotta see her.
They're waiting for you. We had a night, the last evening, where we did a recap. It was words of encouragement, but just observations about every person on the trip and what we'd experienced in the evangelism, but just observed about each other. And I remember that when we got to Will, you know, he had already known some of these men, so they were telling him things that were more personal. I didn't know him at all, but I did have a few things to say. I had told him what, you know, my thoughts about what I saw. And then I remember looking at him from across the room and just quietly, not saying this, but quietly I thought, that man over there, you know, as reserved as he was, I was like, he's gonna unfold pretty soon. He's gonna like grow and blossom. And I thought that would be a really neat thing to be present and see that. But then immediately my mind flipped and said, but I don't know these people very well personally, so we may not even see each other again, you know, and that's life. But we had this trip, and the last night after we had done the round table of, you know, encouragements and reflections, they had given me the bedroom in this Airbnb, and I was sitting in bed, and I had been reading this book on the Holy Spirit. At some point, sitting up in bed praying to God before I fell asleep. In my prayer, I just had this experience of this. It started from the core right here. It was almost not quite like not the kind of intensity of a sonic boom, but it was this very intense, like, burst of warmth and light that it was a full radiation, and it almost overwhelmed me, but it definitely got my attention, and I was like, what is this experience? And in the spirit, I remember responding, as I was talking to God, I remember responding, oh, he loves me. And I thought, wait, who loves me? This is really important to qualify. You know, is it God? But, you know, and it was very clearly, Will loves me. And God was showing me that was Will's love for me, the quality of Will's love. And later I remember making a note that the way that Will loved God, the Lord was showing me that quality and then sharing it with me and showing the quality of his love, and that it was directed at me.
But as I was driving home, I remember just bursting into tears. Something was going on with me that I didn't understand, and even that evening I just decided to sit on my couch and try to process the weekend, what I experienced, what all this was, the dream, Genevieve, what is all this? And I wept for like 40 minutes, and it literally felt like something was moving in my chest. It felt like a mountain had emerged from within me, and I was just praying, asking the Lord, what does this mean? What is this dream? Why the car? What, you know, is this all a coincidence? What's going on? And he told me the car is your heart, you know, and it had been dormant for a very long time, and now it's coming back alive, and she is helping you find it. And so I really had to take that moment and believe and have faith that that was true, and to take the next steps forward. But that was very significant to cry for like 40 minutes and have such an emotional experience, and feeling like something that I'd kind of given up on for a long time. I didn't have a whole lot of hope of getting married. I didn't have a whole lot of hope of like finding a relationship that was good. I actually had a view of marriage that it was a cleansing experience, and it might just be hardship to make us better. But every moment with Genevieve has been exceptionally easy and good and pleasant, and for the first time in my life, I know what it means to be better with someone than by yourself.
Okay, yeah.
So great to meet you guys.
There we go.
This is awesome. I'm the amazing brother.
How are you?
So we got back on a Sunday. The house church, Barbara's house church, was on Monday, so I saw him then. And I remember when I got there, a few minutes late, people were just milling about and chatting, and when Will saw me, he was just beaming. And I thought, well, that's surprising, but that explains, that kind of verifies that experience I'd had, of feeling that love. He came up and talked with me afterwards and invited me out to walk our dogs. What he hadn't known was that Tyler from the Eclipse trip had also mentioned going on dog dates together, like walking all of our dogs because we had them. And I said, oh, that's a great idea. Tyler mentioned this too. That'll be fun. We'll all go out. And I just saw immediately Will's face just dropped. Like, oh no. And I realized, that's not what's happening here. So I just left that element out and let Will decide who would come. And evidently it was just him and me 2 days later.
We each brought our dogs and let them run. And of course I was nervous then too, and trying to be myself, trying to reveal enough, maybe not too much at once. Yeah, we basically came to conclude the date, and I had already determined that I was gonna let her know, I'm serious about this, and I want to know if you want to date and see where this goes.
He asked me, would you like to make this something more? I guess a relationship. And I remember thinking, oh gosh, I didn't say this, but I remember thinking, gosh, I know you love me, but I also don't know you at all. So I was like, well, how do I respond? Because he's kind of waiting. So I just remember saying, I'll think about it. Because then I was trying to figure out, how do we get to know each other without, taking it to a next level that I didn't know if I wanted to. But then it also seemed like a good idea because he was such a neat person and had the kind of love that was very compelling.
She just went, I'll think about it. I was like, all right, well, that's not a no. So I guess that's could be a positive thing.
So I didn't know exactly what to say about it, but then I asked him why. Why do you want this? And he said, well, you have really good character. And I was so surprised, and I was like, how can you tell? Because we'd only spent a short amount of time on the trip. How can you tell? And he said, well, I just been observing you and I can just tell. And what he didn't know was that was music to my ears. If I could have just fallen down and died right then, I would have. Because I had been out on a handful of dates and outings with men where I just maintained who I am, and that in that context totally worked against me. Of course, ultimately it didn't, but it was just, my character was such a turnoff for so many people. And I actually remember thinking shortly before meeting Will, I thought, this is just odd. There's no man that wants a good woman. And so when he said that to me, I was just like, thank you, God. I was like, that is the perfect thing to say. Not exactly the most romantic, but probably the beginning of everything good. And it was the beginning of everything good. So without it being a formal date, it was about that time, so I asked him if he wanted to go get some tacos. And I remember him going, what do you think? Yeah. which was just adorable. Showed his enthusiasm. And so, yeah, so that was the kind of, we had dinner, and that was the continuation of that first, real date. And then the way he picked it up afterwards, because I hadn't said that I wanted to make it more, and it was interesting to see how he understood that, because he was very considerate in not asking me out on more dates. So the way he handled it, well, he wanted to see me again, but the way he handled it was to say, well, tomorrow there's going to be a Bible study that I go to if you'd like to go. And the next day at the Bachelorette Prayer and Healing Rooms, we're having sessions. You might like to go to that too, or would you like to? And I thought, okay, well, these are good signs, because literally the next day he was asking, or maybe 2 days later, he was asking me for another get-together. And the first one was a Bible study. The second one was a prayer and healing room. And I thought, this guy is not doing everything just for his own good. He actually lives the Lord. It was, for me, the way I understood that was, he was carrying on in his life, with or without me, but invited me in a way that was centered on the Lord. And to be invited into that, where suddenly romance or possibility isn't just about two people and what they want, but it was about the fullness of life, was very inviting. And so I said yes to both instances. And that time of saying yes, I realized there was not a time afterwards that I said no. Like, everything into which he invited me after that was just an automatic yes. Like, it was, and the way it lined up was what he wanted, I wanted too. And there was no disagreement, ever. Anyway, so we saw each other a few more times. He had his birthday. And for a week before that, it had been on my mind. I was like, oh, it's this man's birthday. I want to do something for his birthday, but I don't know him, and I can't initiate a birthday party because that's too forward. I was like, but I want to do something for him. And then his friend Nick called me and said, hey, it's Will's birthday soon. Let's get together. And I said, great, what can I do? And I decided to make a cake, and I love chocolate. I figured he would too.
I love it when people make me food. And she baked me an exceptional cake. I'm not even a particular fan of cake, but it was phenomenal. And then 2 days later, we made our relationship official and decided that we would date.
As we started dating and getting to know each other, it was clearer to me that I wanted to marry him. And for me, I had actually wanted to elope. I thought that would be wonderful fun, and it made sense in our lives. To me, it made sense in our lives. Just we're adventurers and travelers, and it seemed like it would fit pretty well. And he said, well, we should probably invite family, probably friends too. And I thought, oh, you're right. And of course he is right. He was, I think the way we're doing this is so much better than, just running off and having fun ourselves.
Shoot, we really didn't date very long before we just kind of knew. I think about 3 months in, we started talking about marriage, and it was not a shock to either of us. It just made sense. We were just, so many things lined up like I've never experienced before. And it's just kind of like when you finally meet someone and you are no longer thinking about other possibilities. Just, I'm not interested in what else is out there. I have what I need right here in front of me.
I had said, well, okay, so if we're gonna get married, if anything's gonna happen, I want you to meet my family first, because I've met all of your family and friends out here in Texas, but a lot of mine are back in North Carolina, and you haven't met them yet. So I said, before anything happens, let's just have you meet them. We'll fly out. And so he and I were going to fly out to North Carolina, but then our trip kept getting pushed back for various reasons, football, which I totally didn't mind. I actually really appreciated it. Part of it was because one time the trip was going to get pushed out, he had already set up a date with his mom to do some draft thing. And I had really respected that he was doing that with family very intentionally.
And so I had decided to write her a song, and about that experience, about our relationship, and as we had really met on an eclipse trip, it just so happened that there was another eclipse not that long after, like 7 months, something like that, and actually less than that, in April 8th. And I decided that we met at an eclipse, or we formed our friendship at an eclipse, and I was going to propose at the next eclipse. And it was kind of like the introduction and the confirmation.
He and I had gone to a friend's wedding. We were invited to a really good friend's wedding. And so it was a couple of hours from Austin. So he had rented a campsite. This is what I understood. He had rented a campsite so we wouldn't have to drive back immediately, but it was the day before the eclipse. And so he said, well, we can stay at the campsite, watch the eclipse, and then come back. And I thought, well, that's great. But then I kept thinking, like, well, we're not going to be chaperoned. It's just the two of us at a campsite. It's like, how are we going to do this? And that kind of, worked on me for a couple of days. I was like, that's not quite right. And then he calls me up and says, would you mind if I invite Tyler to come out camping with us? I thought, perfect, that's great. Our good friend from the first eclipse trip. Our friends were getting married. It was such a good event, and it was such a good time. And I remember taking a quiet moment out there by myself at the venue and thinking, gosh, this would be a great weekend, the eclipse. This would be a great weekend to get engaged. And I thought, but I already asked him to wait until he meets my family, so that's not going to happen. I was like, but I really appreciate him, taking me at my word and waiting. Yeah. It's like, but this really would be a good weekend for it. And then I wiped it from my mind because, that was it. So after the wedding, we drove out to the campsite. Our friend met up with us, had a good night's sleep, and the next day, Will told me that he and Tyler were doing some video recording for the eclipse. I thought, well, that's great. You're going to get, some good stuff out of this. And I was just resting in the tent. He said, well, at some point I'll need your help. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Let me know.
And I set up a camera, and I miraculously packed my guitar without her knowing, and all of my gear. She didn't see me stuffing it into the trunk of the car.
And I noticed that I was really happy and just at ease and relaxed. And I thought, wow, this feels so good. It's like, why do I feel like this? And I realized I feel like this every time I'm with Will. And I was kind of praying in this too, and I thought, oh yeah, every time I'm with him and just lean into it, it's good, like every time. And I thought, that's wonderful, I'm just gonna lean into this. And that thought again had popped into my head, like this would be a great weekend for it, but oh well, because he hadn't met my family. And then he calls me from outside, like, oh, okay, Genevieve, can you come out here to help us? So I went out, and he had this guitar set up, and I thought, well, this is different, but maybe it was for like a campsite thing, or maybe he's gonna do this for the eclipse video. So like this, overly insistently blind woman's walking out. And so he said, well, I finished that song that I was writing for you. And the song, by the way, on my birthday the year before, I had this inkling, this, intuition that he was gonna write me a birthday song. But on my birthday, there was no song, nothing came, and I never mentioned it. But then a couple of months later, he had mentioned, well, I'm writing you a song, and I was actually thinking it started around your birthday. And I told him, oh yeah, because I had an intuition that you were, but he's like, well, it's not done yet. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And so as I'm coming out of the tent and he has his guitar, he said, well, I finally finished that song. I'd like to perform it for you. I thought, well, this is great. Like, that's very cool. He's like, I'd like to record it. I was like, that's fantastic.
All right. Here goes. It's only been 2 weeks, so I can't say it. But I've said it every other way I can. I just haven't spoken the words yet. I love you. It's only been 3 months, but I just know you're the only one for me. Yeah, there's no one else I need to see. You love me. You love me. It's to become one. We'll plant the seed, say our vows, and we'll grow our family tree. I give myself to you. Will you give yourself to me? I love you. I do. I love you. I do. Looked into the deepest parts of me and just still say I do. I wonder how I happened upon someone as perfect as you. Not perfect completely, just perfect for me. Not perfect completely, just perfect for me. I love you. I do. I love you. I do. It's to become one. We'll plant the seed, say our vows, and we'll grow our family tree. I give myself to you. Will you give yourself to me? I love you. I do. I love you. I do. I also.
I love this song.
Genevieve. I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Would you marry me?
Yes, absolutely. I totally will. I love you. Yes. And it was really remarkable to me that even in that moment, God was just such a gracious host and leading it and guiding it and so faithful that before I even stepped out of the tent, and the day before, God was giving me this idea, like this would be a good weekend. And then before I stepped out of the tent, just feeling that ease, and he was letting me hear and understand and know, lean into this. And so when Will proposed a life together, I was like, this is exactly what I want. And it was just an automatic yes too. So, yeah.
So a friend of mine who is known for having a very happy marriage and happy family was asked for marriage advice, and she always responded in the same way, which was, I just married the best person. And I thought that was pretty sound advice, so that's what I'm here to do today. Genevieve, in a short amount of time that I've watched you endure, I've watched you endure incredibly trying circumstances with grace and humility. You always turn away from judgment and bitterness. You love unselfishly. When your nephew came to you seeking a haircut on the week before your wedding, you made time for him, and you cut his hair. And when I didn't like the way my suit fit, you spent 14 hours tailoring it just so that I would like the way that I looked on my wedding day. You love so well. Your impressive character is so easy to see, and it's because you have faced so much difficulty and always turned to God and sought for Him to shape you through it. I have a tremendous amount of confidence that no matter what we face together, you will always choose righteousness. And you will always choose to keep your heart pure. This is the reason that convinced me to pursue you. And it's the reason I have confidence in spending a lifetime with you. Or half a lifetime. You kind of got a late start. Before I proposed, I had been searching through the Bible to understand what marriage is and what my role is in it. And as Nick read most of the verses that I was going to talk about, I understand that it means to lay my life down for you, and that I am now submitting all of my energy, my resources, my own desires to better serve you and the marriage as a whole. I understand that we will now be a part of something larger than ourselves, something more important than trying to build my own life. And now I purpose all of my efforts to first serve God, and in choosing to love you every day, I am serving Him and giving myself to His purpose and His design. And this is my promise, to make God and His Word the foundation of our marriage, to make Him the source of my love for you, which will never run out. I will pursue Him daily and press Him to show me how to love you better and to build within me the character required to accomplish it. I will cherish you, I will treasure you, and I will make myself a treasure for you. In our disagreements, I will humble myself when I am wrong, and I will be patient and gentle when I am right, which will be few and far between, I'm sure. I promise to love you, I promise to love our children, to love God, and always place them at the center of my heart, in the center of this marriage. I promise to love your family and make them a priority, the best I can. There are so many of you. I promise to allow, encourage, and celebrate you being yourself. I so look forward to growing with you and getting to witness all of the beauty that unfolds as we pursue a life together. I promise to grow with you and not grow apart from you, to prioritize our unity, to not run away from unpleasant emotions or difficult conversations. I will do the hard work that's required to keep us healthy. You're the first person that I've met that caused me to experience and understand that I truly am better with you than on my own. And in laying down my life for you, I know that I am actually gaining so much more than I'm losing. And I am so excited to start a life with you.
We met on a trip when I wasn't looking at anybody. And so I was experiencing you as a person, a fellow believer, doing the work of the Lord. And so before I knew you personally, The Lord was gracious to me one night on that trip. He allowed me to experience the quality of your love in the most supernatural way. And he opened my eyes to you. And that kind of experience deserved a response. And my thought was, I want to get to know him then. The kind of man who can have that kind of love. Since then, in the smallest moments of everyday life, many of them sitting on the couch, I have found rest and joy, comfort, meaning, and home in you. As I got to know you, I quickly saw, to my astonishment, that I had actually met a man who could lead me spiritually. That's not an easy thing. I saw that the more I gave to you, and the more that I give to you, the more wealth is poured out over my life, my spirit, my soul. It's been clear to both of us that the Lord has walked before us, and he's guided our steps. And in doing that, he's inclined us to one another. At every challenge that we faced, even early on my birthday trip, every challenge has immediately brought us together and shown us how much in alignment we are. For that, I thank God. And I attribute that to the fact that we both seek him out first. And he is the God of unity. He's a God of unity and not division. And he brings people together in ways that, where we see division, he sees ways that are possible. And that's what he did for us. Well, I am honored and excited in that same thread to give you even more, to give you my whole life, to trust you with my life as a leader, as a friend, as a confidant, as a critic. I give you my love, my strength, everything that I've built up in this long start, skills, and devotion. Today I stand with you, to make my promise to love you without reservation, fully, every part of you, to offer you my perspectives as a way of loving you, to grow our world together and the way we see things even fuller. I look forward to every challenge because I know you're also brave and confident and a bit of a warrior and humble enough to listen to good wisdom from the Lord and from friends. I look forward to those challenges and the trials, and especially the triumphs, because I know they come, because he takes all of those things and makes them into good. He does it to strengthen us and to glorify himself, and I trust that, just the way as I trust that he brought you to me and me to you. I promise to continually seek the Lord, as I've done in my life, and I look forward to how you'll strengthen me in that. I'll seek him as the center of my life and the creator of our life, so that we might find greater unity through his eyes and his understanding and his leadership. I vow to give you my energy, my learning, my being, and everything that comes out of this new life, to lean into your leadership and to trust you to take on your name and the new life that comes with it, and to make it our own. Praise be to God.
It is my honor to present to you Mr. and Mrs. Will and Genevieve Smith.
Also, we don't have to use all the trays. And your pink
Easy, man. It's a beautiful letter.
Genevieve lived there for a while.
Dude, yeah, we just got that.